Welcome back. We are here with our Gen Con most anticipated lists. We're each going to have 5 games. Are we all on board with games?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
We're all on board with games. We're also here with Nelson Oliver from Nelson All Over. Nelson, welcome to the channel.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Nelson's he's done a little bit of content. I don't know if it's been posted before this or it's going to be posted after this, but you're going to see Nelson on a couple videos at least, and hopefully maybe a continuing contributor from time to time. You've seen him on the channel too. You were on a crowd control episode.
I was, yeah.
And one of our shorts. It was fabulous performance on the short, by the way.
Thank you.
Also, beyond all that, Nelson is very well informed on board games as well, and a big Gen Con fan, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it works really well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're all Gen Con fans or you wouldn't be watching this video. But we're, like I said, going to go through 5 titles that we're looking forward to. These aren't in any necessary or, each of us.
15 games.
Buckle up. 15 games total, and we're going to go ahead and get right to it. Ryan, what's your first one that you want to talk about?
The first one I want to talk about is Queen by Midnight from Darrington Press. This is Critical Role's publishing team. This game, I mean, this looks phenomenal. This game looks like, if you're looking at the table presence alone,
presentation-wise, yes.
This is a steampunk vibe. It's called Queen by Midnight, but it's all these princesses who are kind of battling to become queen after this event.
Midnight?
By midnight.
Oh.
And there's actually... you lead right into it. It might seem a little gimmicky, but it's very cool. There's a clock in the middle of the table that tracks the rounds as you get closer to midnight. It's also the dice tower where you drop your dice, and it has the row of cards you can buy, and it just rotates to each player so you have all that information right in front of you. But the reason that I'm anticipating this game is because it gives me Dice Throne vibes. It doesn't look like it plays like Dice Throne, really, but that feeling of like laying out your player board, having all these abilities you can trigger, getting cards to put on your player board to then have better abilities over the course of the game. And then, of course, the idea that you're battling against other opponents. But while Dice Throne is more of a 1v1, this seems like it's built also for multiple people, though you can do that with Dice Throne, whatever.
You can.
But I think this is one that I'm going to be really excited to try. And I get sucked in really easily by that steampunk vibe.
He does.
And the artwork, graphic design, presentation, all that for this game is just knocks it out of the park.
Well, I can attest to that. I saw this at Gamma kind of set up on a table. And presentation-wise, yes, they're killing it. I haven't played the game, so I don't know, but it sounds kind of
I haven't played it either, but I would love
to. So the first one I want to talk about is a expansion. I know I'm cheating. It's not a full-fledged game, but it's an expansion. This one is The Missing Expedition for Lost Ruins of Arnak. Yeah. As you know, we're all pretty big fans of Arnak. And this one, we've done a piece on it on the channel, but we haven't had our chance to get our grubby little hands on it yet.
A little bit. We got to touch components.
We did touch components. That sounds like a very peculiar thing to be doing, but we did. We checked it out from like a short distance at Origins. But yeah, this is going to be the first chance to buy it.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to be in line to buy it, as I assume some other people will be. As it goes with all things Gen Con, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today may likely sell out.
Oh, this is going to sell out quick.
I mean, I don't know how many they're going to have. They might have 1 billion of them.
When when the Expedition Leaders expansion came out for Lost Ruins, the line to get that was out the CGE room and like down the hall. And I imagine it's going to be like
anything like this with a built-in fan base is definitely going to draw a line. So I'll be in it. Unless you're listening, CGE, I can just kind of step to the front and get one.
I think all 15 of these games are games like if you hear one of these that you really like, probably want to get in line Thursday morning.
Yeah,
because they might sell out.
Yeah.
What's your next?
My first one is going to be Sky Team from Hachette.
Oh, yeah.
So Sky Team is a 2-player only cooperative experience where you're trying to land an airplane, which sounds super cool because I got to actually demo this one earlier this year at Gamma, and one person is playing like the operator, one person's playing the pilot, and it's a dice placement game, and it's kind of this like push-pull, how can you communicate, because you can't talk, but how can you communicate with your actions and when you take your specific actions, but you have to make sure your plane is level, you have to make sure you're not running into other planes, which is typically bad.
Generally speaking.
When the air traffic controller can't talk to the pilot, it does run that risk.
Yeah, it is a really interesting balance. I demoed it there too, and it's probably one of the most thematic cooperative games that I've played. And also the fact that it was 2 players was cool.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about it being at Gen Con is at Gamma, I don't know about you, but I just played like one little scenario.
Yeah, just kind of the
And there's a bunch of scenarios to play. But yeah, you have to literally balance a lot of things because you're balancing your plane. You get the flaps up, your gear down, all these things, and it's really dicey.
I just love the idea of two-player cooperative. We don't get a lot of that, so that's good.
Yeah.
Ryan, what's your next one?
My next one is the Search for the Lost Species. This is the sequel to Search for Planet X, which is a game I loved. I've gotten to play this one. I love it even more. You're looking for this species in the jungle, and you're actually moving around a board, which is something new that they've added that was not in Planet X. You're actually literally moving, and based on the tile that you're in, there's different types of things that you can find, different pieces of information you can gain. So a lot like Planet X, this is a deduction game where you're going to be trying to find a little piece of information that makes you put an X there, and if you put an X here, that means there's a check here, and if there's a check here, then these are X's and whatever. It's that same kind of cascading puzzle where you're trying to discover not only where the lost species is, but also, like Planet X, what's around it as well. So you have to do a lot of that, but it's that jungle theme. And now, instead of just being one planet, it's a species you're looking for, and every species card has its own rules. So every game that you play is going to be fundamentally different from the one you played before.
Yeah, and it's also very different from Planet X.
I mean, it shares the same DNA, and so a lot of the actions you're taking are the same. But you're right, just because you now have a board, and you have that element where you have to move around it, it does change it.
Yeah, that's huge. And I like deduction games, but I will be honest with you, this one left a chunk of my brain on the table that I'll never get back.
I was there for that.
He was there. It was not a pretty sight for me. It was a brain burner for sure. My next one is one that we just recently played. We will have content up on this soon if we don't already, and it is Dawn of Ulos. This is from Thunderworks, and it seems like it's an area control game, but really more it's a stock economy game because all the factions that are on the board, you're not playing one of them. You're a god kind of controlling these, and everyone can control all the factions. And when you do that, you're placing tiles on your turn. So it's kind of very simple to play. On your turn, you just place a tile, and then placing that tile is going to sort of increase the power of a faction, most likely. And then you're able to buy cards if you want. And when you buy cards, you're basically buying stock, in a way, in those factions. The kicker is all those stock cards are also cards that have powers that you can use. So when you're using that, you're giving up maybe some earning potential at the end of the game, but you're using it to sort of like maybe pivot or do something mid-game to kind of enhance things. It's an interesting game, and it's got a lot of fun moments where people are revealing cards, and you're like, wait, I thought you were going to do this. Why didn't you do this? Because now this. Yeah, it's a really fun game. It took me by surprise for sure.
Nice. Next up for me is the one right over my shoulder, and that's Expeditions. That's the new Stonemaier game, kind of set in the Scythe universe.
Yep. Yeah.
It is not Scythe 2.0. It is not an expansion of Scythe. It's its own game.
Yeah.
And it kind of shares the same themes and ideas of like controlling mechs, which is super cool. But it's more of an exploration game where you're going out and trying to, again, collect 4 stars. But it's a little bit more... what am I trying to say? Just like...
Zoomed in?
Zoomed in. Yeah, that's a great way to say that.
Yeah.
And so you're uncovering different tiles as you're exploring out. You're taking specific actions on those tiles, and then it is a worker placement type blocking. So if you're on that tile, no one else can take that action as well. And so it's going to be, I think, it's going to be a big one, I think.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be giant.
All you have to say was Stonemaier to start with.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention Scythe. Yeah. But I will underscore, as we've said on the channel of a couple pieces of content we've done, it is very different than Scythe.
Yeah.
It does feel familiar, but it's a very different game. And actually, some of us aren't even huge fans of Scythe, but we really liked Expeditions.
Well, yeah, it has a really unique card system, too.
Yeah.
A unique card play system. So we did a live stream, and we did a...
Yeah, go watch our content after this content.
All right, so my next one is NEOTOPIA. This is coming from Arcane Wonders, and this is a tile placement game. This is a pattern building, puzzle solving type game where you're drafting tiles, taking tiles to place onto a board, which maybe is something you've heard before, but this is a little different. It's a central board that everyone's building on at the same time, and you're trying to claim areas of different colors, and you're trying to kind of do it evenly, because the way the game scores, you want to have kind of even areas of all the different colors. And it almost gives me that Ginkopolis vibe, a little bit of everybody putting tiles out on the same board, so everything that's being built is being changed. Now, this is not one that I've played. This is not one that I've gotten to demo, and there's really not a lot more information than that available.
So you're truly anticipating
So I
this.
truly am anticipating seeing this one. Well, what I've seen, it just looks really cool, and I love tile placement games. And I love that idea of like, cooperatively working together to build a city. And then there was even some talk of like, as you complete certain things, you can like add on sections to the city and make it bigger as you go. So it seems like it's going to be a very satisfying, brain-burnery type puzzle game.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it.
But I hadn't either. This is one that we've met with them and they didn't say anything to us about this
Thanks
one.
a lot.
So I'm just excited to go to the Arcane Wonders booth. They usually do have demos of most of their games. So I'd like to try this one, but I probably will walk away with it.
Very cool. My next one is a heavier game, which is unique for me, and that is Age of Innovation, which I think we have the box right behind us here. So while I have gotten a glimpse of it, I'm still anticipating it, and I'm anticipating this being kind of a big Gen Con release for a lot of people. This is a Terra Mystica game, and my entry to that sort of type of game was actually Gaia Project. I played that before I played Terra Mystica. I like it better than I like Terra Mystica. In fact, I've only played Terra Mystica, I think, once or twice. I'm looking forward to this game being sort of Terra Mystica 2.0.
With a lot of Gaia Project.
Well, with some of that
stuff
I do happen to know that it doesn't have all of the things that Gaia Project did. So I'm kind of curious to see why they haven't done that and what they've added that kind of like makes up for that. Yeah. So, and I think it lies in the innovations, because there's definitely, that's a totally new part of the game where you're adding innovations to your board. But anyway, that one's coming from Capstone, and I imagine this will be one, I mean, any big Terra Mystica or Gaia Project fan is probably going to pick this up.
You didn't even mention the part that's the coolest, I think, because I almost put that on my list.
What's the coolest?
You did. The fact that you're building your player board by choosing two different things and mashing them up. Like, that's unique, because in Terra Mystica, you just got a faction. There was no building out of your powers or anything like that.
And you do that in?
Yeah, you do that in this one. You get
to
choose.
I'll take his word for it. If he's wrong, let us know in the comments below.
I got to see a demo of it at, actually, I think it was Gen Con last year.
They did have it at Gen Con last year.
That was really cool.
Nice. Alrighty, up next for me, David cheated, so I'm also going to cheat. I have an expansion. It's War of the Ring Against the Shadows. So War of the Ring is a competitive card game for 4 players where one person controls the shadow and one person controls the free people set in the Lord of the Rings universe. This one turns it into a solo co-op experience, and I play a lot of solo co-op games, and I play a lot of solo co-op Lord of the Rings games, and so I'm very excited.
How could you not be looking forward to this?
Exactly, right?
Are they making this for you? It
I
sounds
think
like
so.
they are.
Yeah, they sent me an email. They're like, this one's for you. And so this one, it feels like it's going to be something that I'm just going to get a lot of mileage out of, because I love the lore of Lord of the Rings. Sure. And it feels like there's going to be a lot of modularity for where the shadow is attacking and how you have to defend those with the tactical decisions of the cards in your hand. And so I'm really looking forward to this one. I've actually never played the core game.
Oh, you haven't played it? I was about to ask if you were a fan of that so far.
I've never tried it.
That one's competitive.
That one's competitive, and you can play it with 2, but it's geared towards 4 players, which is just kind of hard for me personally and where I'm at in my life to get to the table.
Huh.
And so this making it a solo co-op experience makes it a lot more appealing.
Yeah. Well, that's it's proof right there that making that's bringing new players to the game for sure. That's cool.
All right, my next one, small box game called Sea Salt and Paper.
Oh, it is a small box.
I know people have been playing this because a lot of people have been talking about it and importing it from Europe, but this is actually going to be released in the States at Gen Con. I think this is going to be a huge, popular game. It really is. It's such a small box. It's just a deck of cards, but it's really attractive looking. Every card has origami on it. All the artwork is done via actual origami that they did and took pictures of, which is really cool. But it's one of those games where, with multi-use cards, where as you take these cards, you're either playing them for their abilities or you're saving them for scoring. And all the different types of cards have all these different scoring things, and you can kind of see what people are going for. So there is like a little bit of that hate draft moment. There's a little bit of that take that moment where you can mess with people's hands and things like that. But it's just such a satisfying experience, and it plays in like 30 minutes max.
Yeah, it is a brilliant little game. I think a lot of people were playing this at Gamma earlier this year with imported versions of it. And this one is going to be one of those little box games, probably one of the hottest little box games at the show.
I'm not going to say it's this year's Scout, but it's that same kind of vibe where you're just going to see people sitting on Gen Con playing this game in between other games for sure.
Well, my next one is a game that I am going to associate, or it's at least a publisher I associate with cons, because it's Race to the Raft. This is set in sort of the Isle of Cats universe, if there is such a thing.
There is now.
There is now. I created it. No, but my first interaction with Isle of Cats was like at this little table outside of the vending hall at Origins,
right by that
actually.
Cafe, right?
And then I think later that year, my wife Alicia actually went to the City of Games booth and ordered it. And then we love it. I mean, we absolutely love that game. So this one's going to be available. It's kind of a follow-up to that. It's not tile drafting or polyomino placement like that, but there are polyominoes involved. You have this board built out of cards, and there's cats on there, and you're basically trying to create paths with card placement and I think some tile placement to get the cats to the rafts. Yeah. That's the gist of the game. And there's been some content out on this. I think they did a campaign for it once upon a time, and there's some content out there, but we didn't get a chance to play it. So hopefully we'll get a quick early preview copy of this just before Gen Con. If we do, we'll try to get a video up for it, but if not, I'll be getting it at Gen Con for sure.
Nice. Up next for me is the heaviest game on my list, and that is KUTNA HORA.
Oh, that's heavy.
Heavy. From CGE, this is a economic kind of city building game where, similar to Terra Mystica, where you're unlocking abilities as you're placing buildings and reserving spots out on the city. But the coolest part about this game, in my opinion, is the supply and demand. Players are creating and simulating a supply and demand where, based on the population of the city and how many of the producers of that type of resource out there, there's like this little stand that slides back and forth, and then cards that will determine the price of each good. And so, yeah, it's heavy. It's gonna be.
that sounds. Well, they've said it's like their heaviest game.
Yeah.
For CGE to say heaviest game, they have some heavy games.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most Euro-y too.
It is the most Euro-y, but they've had some pretty thick games for sure.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. There's a whole mining area majority section of the board. There's the scoring of placement on the building. There's the economic. I mean, like, there's a lot of modules in this game that look. I've seen it at Origins. They had a copy there, and it just like kind of looks like it all is going to flow really nicely together.
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to it.
What's your next one?
Yes, this is number 5. This is Barcelona from Board and Dice. This is a company that is known for doing a lot of heavy Euro games.
And releases at cons.
And big con releases. Yeah. This is their big one for this year. This game looks absolutely phenomenal and 100% up my alley. So
do you know much about it?
I do know a lot about, well, I wouldn't say a lot about it, but I know the key things that matter to me.
It's called Barcelona.
It's called Barcelona. No, you're building out the expansion to Barcelona. This is based on actual history, kind of the rise of this like urbanization plan, where they kind of built out a whole extra district of Barcelona, and then people kind of moved into this new district. And so you're in charge of doing that, and you're building like paths to get people from the old into the new while you're building up the new, and you're building these tram lines, and there's these really cute miniatures, especially the trams, which just look really colorful. The game itself just looks very colorful. But I've actually talked to a few people that got to play this. They had a demo at Dice Tower East last week. The key word that people were saying is that it's combo-rific. And that's all. That's
really?
All I need to hear. That a lot of what you're doing when you're building up Barcelona is you're triggering combos. You can place things out so that when other people take actions, you get to do things and get benefits like that as well. So that's what I said. I know everything I need to know about this game. People literally texted me because they know that I love those satisfying combos, and like, you're gonna love Barcelona.
Yeah, all I need to hear is that it's from Board and Dice, because usually their games. I mean, even their games that are not great are good. Like you're
well, sure. I don't think they've had like a total dud yet.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, well, my last one is a game we've talked about on the channel. I'm not going to spend a ton of time because you can hear us drone on about it in several different fashions. It's Wild Tiled West. This game is on this list because, am I anticipating it personally? No, we have a copy. I can play it whenever we want. But you, who might be going to Gen Con, I'm telling you right now, if you like fun tile laying games in the weight of the kind of game you'd expect from the designer of Clank, who designed this, Wild Tiled West is a blast. Yeah. It's a lot of fun every time I've played it. And I played this for the first time at Gamma too. Okay. And ever since then, I was like, oh, this is great. And then we were lucky enough to do the How to Play But this is tile placement, tile drafting, really nice production from Direwolf as well. And I think it's like the only game they're really going to be presenting at
I think this is their
Gen
big
Con.
new.
I'm sure they'll be selling copies of Dune also if you want them.
Forever they will.
If you already don't own it. But Wild Tiled West, be sure to check it out.
Nice. And then finally for me is the new trading card game from Ravensburger, LORCANA.
You stole this one right from me.
I did. And
this would be my number one too.
I haven't heard of it. What's it?
So this is a TCG set in the Disney universe where it's a head-to-head. It's almost like a race. So if you play Keyforge, it's kind of the same vibe where you're racing. You're not trying to reduce your opponent's life point to 0, which is something that I really appreciate. You're racing to the 20
points.
Yeah.
Whatever they are thematically.
Points. And so you're playing out, all the classic characters that you love, Mickey Mouse, Lilo and Stitch, and all of these characters. And then it's a pretty simple system, which I also really appreciate. There are cards that you can add to your inkwell, and then you can use those, you can exert those cards to pay for cards to either items or characters and try to get to 20 points. And it's a really good foundation. I got to try this one at Gamma, and it is a phenomenal foundation. It's a very entry-level TCG.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going for. That being said, I see that this has huge potential, and I don't see this lasting past Thursday.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say I don't see this game lasting long.
That's what I thought.
No, I don't see this. Whatever copies they have. I know when the events went on sale, a lot of people were doing the how to play event because you get to walk away with a starter deck.
Yeah.
And I know they have a lot of plans to expand on this.
Yeah.
A lot of new content coming. Hopefully this gets a lot of support over the next years, but I'm all in on this game. 100%.
Same.
It's fair to say, would you guys agree, longest, biggest line probably at Gen Con?
Oh, yeah. Well, until they sell out, then everyone gets out of line.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We might do a post-Gen Con show where we talk about
we will.
what the longest, most intense lines were and things like that.
Yeah, there's always lines at the FFG booth. And something that we don't talk about a lot, and I don't think any of us are big fans of it, but the miniatures games always have new releases at Gen Con.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Those lines are crazy long. And I'm like, what are you guys waiting for? It's like, a couple new figures. It doesn't mean a lot to me just because we're not involved in those lifestyle games. But for the people that are, and they buzz right to those booths to get those new figures.
And I'm anxious to see what Gen Con, I'm anticipating what it's going to be like this year, because since COVID, it hasn't quite been back to what it once was. I do think this is going to be the first year where it's going to get close.
I was fine with it not being. I was actually fine with the relaxed vibe.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
Everyone's
mind.
standing so far apart. It was nice.
I didn't mind, but I do like some of that old stuff, like the big long lines. Because I don't think I saw a lot of big long lines anywhere in the last couple of years.
You couldn't even really be that close
But
together.
yeah, that'll be interesting. And we might have some other videos of other things that we're anticipating. We might do games that are going to be demoed. We might do a little bit more on the expansion front. Or we might just do stuff, if you're in Gen Con, stuff to look forward to down in Indianapolis. There's some things actually in Indianapolis to look forward to, believe it or not. But if you have any questions about any of the games we talked about, make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and try to answer what we can. Certainly after Gen Con, we'll answer more than beforehand. But until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.